Hey, we Moyo everywhere we go. It is critically important that we learn, that we train ourselves to be able to recognize our emotions, recognize what those physical emotions really mean in our lives. I believe that God often speaks to us through our emotions. And if we ignore those emotions, don't recognize those emotions, don't evaluate those emotions, then we miss what God is saying to us. There's so many times when we let the opinions of others affect our emotions. We don't want someone to see us with a certain emotion of anxiety or fear or joy, whatever. We let other people's opinion of us dampen our emotions. We push them aside and we don't evaluate them. Marcus Aurelius said, I don't understand why we spend most of our lives considering ourselves better than others, but then considers other people's opinions of us as more important than our opinions of ourselves. And it's so true. We worry so much about what people think about us, and we ignore the emotions in our own heart. Where I contend, and I believe, that we often can hear the voice of God when we examine our emotions. Our emotions are there for a reason. Why do I feel that way? Why do I have that sensation? There is a reason. It's not random. In 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 11 through 13, Elijah is listening for God, and he's standing outside, and there's a huge, strong, and powerful wind. And he listens for God in the wind, and God's not in the wind. And then there's an earthquake that rumbles, powerful, shaking buildings, trees, rocks. God's not in the earthquake, even though Elijah listens. And there's a huge fire, raging flames of heat, roaring. He listens for God in the fire. God's not in the fire. But then he hears God. A still, small voice. If we don't pay attention, if we don't listen, if we don't evaluate, we will miss it. And I would contend to you that in the midst of those emotions that are part of our physical being, that are there for a reason, God made us, and that emotion is being felt for a reason. What is the reason? Why don't we examine it? Why don't we quit worrying so much about what other people think? Quit worrying about the wind and the earthquake and the fire, but listen to the still small voice. You will not hear God's voice in the midst of your journey as long as you're listening for the earthquake of people's opinion, for the wind of people's attitudes, and for the fire of envy and fear and anxiety. Evaluate your emotions. You are a masterpiece, created intricately, and everything about you is meant to serve a purpose. So don't ignore your emotions. Recognize them. And when you do, evaluate them and understand what they're there for. Maybe it's God prompting you to a certain action, to take advantage of a certain opportunity to touch someone's life and make a difference. Recognize your emotions. They're speaking the language that God is speaking into your mind. Don't let the earthquake and the wind and the fire of others' opinions distract you. Make the most of every opportunity. Moyo everywhere we go.